take the wind out of their sails. What I do in that, let me give you an example. When I try a case and there's something bad about my case, I tell the jury that. I once my first DUI trial that I handled, my guy drove a beer truck for a living, blew a .28 blood alcohol level, and wrecked into 2 cars. The first thing I told the jury was, ladies and gentlemen, my client blew a .28, wrecked into 2 cars, and drives a beer truck for a living. They went, oh, I got it out of the way. In negotiations, if there's something that you can't hide, get it out of the way. We fear the unknown, do we not? Oh my gosh, we fear the unknown. That sometimes enters into negotiations. A bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. I know it's a cliche. You know why it's a cliche? Because it's true. Sometimes you make the deal or take the deal because it's better to have the money. For example, I look at a client sometimes, they want 100 grand. I can only get them 50. I can say, well, here's the deal. We can try to get you 100. It's going to be a 2-year wait to go to trial, or you get 50 now. Done. Most are smart and take the 50. Your foe today may be your friend tomorrow and vice versa. Anybody seen the latest movie, Wall Street? Money Never Sleeps? Nobody? I know you guys are broke college students. There's a great scene in the movie where one of Gordon Gekko's enemies becomes his ally. Boy, this is true in politics. I was big time in politics back when I was in my early 20s. And it always cracked me up. One minute you're throwing stones at somebody. The next campaign you're on the same team. Yeah, I remember we threw those stones at you. Yeah, I remember, you son of a gun. You never know. Don't let them see you sweat. That is very, very difficult at times because sometimes you're sweating. What's most important? When you're in negotiation, what is most important? Getting your foot in the door, making money. By the way, this isn't up on my list and it should be. You know, sometimes the best move in negotiations is to don't do the deal. There's always another deal. Sometimes it's best not to do the deal. What can you live without? Don't put that in the deal. Patience can be a virtue or a curse. Sometimes you need to be patient. Sometimes, let me tell you something. You have to know your own weakness. This is funny. Mediations are becoming more and more popular in the practice of law. That's when you get in a courtroom, not in the courtroom, but you get in a room, both sides, and you negotiate with a mediator. I never go to mediations. Do you know why? I have a temper. I get mad, I cuss and leave. So I don't go to them. I send Diane Brown from my office. You know why? She's as patient as Job. She puts up with all the crap, and she stays there all day long. Here I am. I can't stand to be in a room all day long going back and forth. I'm like, just give me your best number, and I'll let you know if it's good or not. That's my weakness. I'm impatient, and I hate all the stupid procedures. But since I know that's my weakness, I don't go to them. I send somebody else that doesn't mind sitting there all day. One time, I left a mediation deal with an insurance company in a law office. Steve Wanzak likes telling the story. And I walked out of his office, and the insurance adjuster was upstairs in the other room. And I walked out of the conference room, and I yelled at the top of my lungs. This guy's name's Ed Knox. He's a senior adjuster. Ed, you can kiss my... and walked out. I couldn't stand it. Guess what? The case ended up settling. Let me tell you something about that, though. My temper, I use it. It's very effective at times. Very effective. Sometimes it's effective to get mad and leave a room. Another thing about this, about being patient, is it really is true. Sometimes you need to make a decision now. My dad says you can't teach judgment, and I agree with him. You know, this is contradictory. Sometimes you need to be patient. Sometimes you need to make a quick decision. My final negotiation tip. Sometimes you just beg. We've all done that with parents, haven't we? Dad, come on. Mom, come on. Spouse, girlfriend, come on. Negotiations in business, I swear to gosh. Let's say you got a good relationship. Okay, let's say, for example, I use Presto, for example, Presto and Snappy Tomato. Let's say, for example, we were thinking about getting another bid on where we're going to get our sauce from. Well, I could hear the guy from Presto, come on, Vito. How you like that? One of the guys that runs our pizza company is named Vito. How do you make that up? The guy's name's Vito. People wonder why they always think pizza's a front for the mob. Anyway, you know, I could see them begging. Come on, man, please. We've been doing business together forever. Come on. And sometimes that works. Vito says, all right, I'll give you another chance. By the way, this is a good technique. I've used it even with federal judges. I have stood in front of judges. I've stood in front of juries. I've been in arguing a case in a judge's chambers, and I will say those words. Your Honor, I'm not too big to beg. I'm begging you. You cannot dismiss that part of our case. I'll look at a jury and say, ladies and gentlemen, I beg of you, you cannot find my client guilty of da-da-da-da-da-da. It's a technique, and don't be afraid to use it. A lot of it depends on who you do it. This is a funny story. I own Bulldogs, which loses money. I publicly say it on the radio. I got 2 restaurants that lose money. The other day on the radio, I publicly said, if anybody wants it, I will give you the business. I fired employees all the time. At Bulldogs, I'm telling you, it drives you nuts. Some of the people and the things they do, and see, I'm all about responsible discipline. I would say almost every person I fired, I rehired. I'd get mad and fire them because they did something bonehead. And words traveled through the Bulldogs. I said, hey man, don't worry, he fired me too. Just wait a day, you call him and apologize. He's a softie, he'll take you back. You know what? It works. Because I am, though I have this persona of being the bulldog and tough guy, I am a softie. I cry in movies. So this works on me. Reverse psychology works on certain people. You know, it works on my dad. My dad's biggest, he's 80 years old. He's a very successful person, still works every day. His biggest love is horses. I hope one day he gets a horse in there. He had a horse in the Breeders' Cup. He had a horse that won $1 million and ran the Breeders' Cup and broke its leg in the Breeders' Cup. When you talk to my dad about horses, he gets, this is part of the negotiation, he gets excited. When I got to talk to my dad about something important, I do this all the time. I'll say, Dad, how's the horses? Oh, we just sold da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I get him talking about his horses, then I ask him what I want. It works like a charm. Reverse psychology works too on my dad. If I say to my dad, see, I know him. Now apply this to business. If I say to my dad, you know, I was going to talk to you about such and such, but I know you wouldn't like it. Well, don't say that. What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking about? He falls for it every time. Reverse psychology sometimes works. So that's my presentation with you about negotiations. A little outside the box, I hope, outside the box. I could tell by some of your expressions, I don't think it bored you. And I'm open to questions, if you have any. I can tell you right now, if you remember one thing, I'm not kidding, that Al Capone quote, do you have bullets, or do you just have to ask with a kind word? Because sometimes you do, you just beg. Was he driving the beer truck? Please? Was he driving the beer truck? No. He was not driving the beer truck. This is funny. My closing argument in that case, it was my first DUI jury. I didn't even know who went first. The judge goes, are you ready? And I'm like, yes. I didn't know if I was supposed to speak. My closing argument, this was right after Christmas. My closing argument, I talked about them having some Christmas cheer left. And I gave a sappy speech. And the prosecutor thought I pulled it. They deliberated like for an hour and a half, which was long for a DUI. She thought I actually had pulled it off. They convicted him, but only gave him the minimum. By the way, that's another technique. Sometimes you go down swinging. You know you're going to lose. I know a judge is going to rule against me. I just let it rip. Who gives a dang? I'm going to go down swinging. You know why? If your client is sitting there, in the law, and even in business, your client is sitting there, it's awesome that when you lose, there's nothing worse in law when you're right and you lose. When your client's sitting there and you just let it rip and boom, 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 because you know you're going to lose, and you walk out, your client isn't mad at you, they're mad at the judge or they're mad at the jury because you said everything they wanted you to say. It's a neat technique. Keeps the client happy even when you lose. They go home blaming not the lawyer. And I've never had that happen. I'm very proud to say that. I have never had a client at the end of a trial think I sucked, even when I lost. But sometimes you go down swinging. Negotiations. Anything else? Yes.
Have you ever used as a tactic just doing something totally unexpected and out of character just to get a rise on the other side and see their reaction?
Absolutely. I can't think of an example right off the top of my head, but I've done that plenty of times. You know, yes.
We talked
See.
a lot in here about helping negotiations along by separating the person from the problem. Do you find those kinds of tactics useful?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you got to separate the person from the problem. Here's an example, in negotiations, is sometimes you've got to forget about the person. Let's say you don't get along with them and stay focused on the issue. That's a good technique. And what do they really want? What do they really want? Negotiations, a lot is about risk management, In law it is, business it is. You're managing risks. So how, maybe somebody doesn't like you, but you can separate the person from the problem and say, hey, I know I don't, here's like a lawyer I don't get along with, but we get the case settled because it's the right price to settle the case. So you forget about you hating the guy. Here's something that is terrible to do. You don't like a lawyer, so you don't negotiate. You let that get to you. Bad, bad, bad.